Hey all, this is Reddit. Today I want to give my thoughts on the From Software game announced at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I'll go over what we know currently, what I think the game is going to be like based on what we know, and finally my opinions on it. And it won't be long before we know more. After the Duskbloods trailer, they confirmed that there would be a creator voice article where Hidetaka Miyazaki, the game director, will share more details about the game. And this is happening very soon on April 4th. So my first impression from seeing the trailer was that we were looking at the next major From Software project, something in the vein of Elden Ring, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls. But it seems to be not that. The press release for the game says the following. Developed for the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2, the Duskbloods is a PvPvE title with online multiplayer at its core, where up to 8 players vie for supremacy among themselves and against challenging foes. Play as the Bloodsworn, a group that has transcended human strength thanks to their special blood, and throw yourself into a violent fray for first blood, as the twilight of humanity approaches. Release is currently set for 2026, and we hope you look forward to it. So to me, it seems that this is not their next big major project. It's not something like Elden Ring, it's not even something like Sekiro or Armored Core. The fact that it's exclusive to the Switch 2 and it has a multiplayer focus makes me think that it's more along the lines of Night Rain. I think it's a smaller side project in an unfamiliar genre that gives them the opportunity to experiment and flex their creative muscles while also continuing to work on whatever the next big thing is. Hidetaka Miyazaki is the director on this, but that doesn't mean that he's not also the director on whatever the next big thing is. He's been known to work on multiple projects at once, like Durasune and Sekiro. I recall an interview in which he said that he worked on both and used the opportunity of working on one to get ideas for the other. And the development for Elden Ring started in early 2017. After the final Dark Souls 3 DLC was released. Miyazaki was also the original director for Armored Core 6, and we know that From Software was working on that as early as 2016. So he's no stranger to directing multiple projects. Now, as for how the game world is, it seems to me that it's a little bit like Night Rain, but much nicer and more carefully made. There seems to be a lot more indoor sections, underground sections, and more confined spaces. But there's also a scene where you see a Duskblood jump onto what looks like a spirit spring, go high up into the air, allowing you to see what I assume is most of the sandbox that you're in. Since it's a PvPvE game, I expect it's going to function a little bit like Hunt Showdown, where different players will spawn on the edges of the map and will have similar objectives, like killing a lot of the bosses that are sure to be in the map and acquiring other kinds of loot, but also having to beware of other players that could kill them and take whatever loot you get from the bosses or whatever other resources you're collecting. So you'll have to be careful when you're dealing with the map or the boss or the enemies, because there could be enemy players lurking nearby. Since it's 8-player multiplayer, I expect that either it will be 8 players playing against each other, or 4 teams of 2 playing together against other teams of 2. I don't expect that there'll be 2 teams of 4 that will be able to play against each other, though, unless the game has several different game modes, and that's one of the ones you can select. Now, there is a scene where you see one of the characters seem to summon another. This could be him summoning some kind of NPC phantom to help deal with the upcoming boss, but I don't think that's what this is. The player that he summons seems to be just a normal player. What I think is happening is that these 2 players separated from each other, and there will be some kind of item that you can use to call your co-op partner to you, in case they stray very far away and you need help. Having been called, the ally might have a prompt saying, "You're being called, do you want to move to your co-op partner's position?" I also think that the Duskbloods are individual characters. They're not blank avatars for you. I think that they are individualized characters that will have special abilities unique to them. Well, I think we see some of their individual properties, their individual abilities. Like the guy encased in this armor that jetpacks across the field, I don't think that's just an armor set you can find and equip. I think that's an individual character and that's his special ability. The guy using aspects of the Crucible Tyrannosaurus Rex might be another special ability, though I'm less sure of that. If they are in fact classes, then the ones we can see are the nobleman with the saber and the machine gun, an old scholar with what looks like a cane sword, katana-wielding Van Helsing, Asian woman, the jetpack guy that's heavily armored and fully encased, a magic-wielding young boy that has a spherical relic in his hands, a crystal and gold guy that has a long gun at his back and what looks like 2 fist weapons at his sides, a high-heeled dual-wielding girl, and I think she has pigtails, and finally Lady Maria. Now, we haven't seen very much of the gameplay. We haven't seen them attacking things very often, and not in any extended amount of time, which I think will be interesting to see. Because one of the times we do see them do something is the nobleman does a double jump, and then fires his automatic machine gun as he's descending, which is very different than something we would have been able to do in a game like Bloodborne. I suspect that the gameplay will still be Souls PvP at its core, but the movement has me wondering if they've decided to significantly evolve it, given that they are leaning into this multiplayer focus. My current questions that I would hope are answered in April 4th when Miyazaki releases that article is just how customizable these characters will be. Will they be like Night Rain characters, where they are individual characters? Can you swap out their armor? Are they stuck with the weapons that they're using, meaning that the weapons will be more complex and more individualized, or are you just going to be able to pick up any weapons like normal? At the end they show a cutscene of what looks like another Duskblood about to fight the playable character nobleman Duskblood. And this could be a boss fight, this could just be a boss fight cutscene. But it also could have been their way of indicating that this is a PvP game. The character that you're fighting is obviously also a Duskblood by the thing on their hand. And before they fight, they strike a pose, similar to how people do duels in online multiplayer. I think it's possible that this is supposed to represent you fighting another person, and them striking a pose before the fight starts. And might also explain the choice of attire or lack of attire. Either that's just how this character dresses, or there is some level of customization, and the enemy chose to wear that. All of this is stuff I hope gets clarified in the upcoming article. Now, as for my personal feelings on this game, I am extremely excited. Though not quite as excited as when I first saw the trailer and I believed that this was going to be Bloodborne 2. I know that this isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but for me personally, I like that From Software is making smaller projects in other genres more frequently. I like that they're experimenting and making forays into new areas. There will be a major project again at some point, but personally, I don't know if I would even want there to be important big Elden Ring-sized projects every year or even every other year. Elden Ring is a sizable company now with a lot of staff, and there's no guarantee that if you pulled all the people from these side projects, that the main project will be done faster or with a higher quality. Sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and there are diminishing returns to just adding more people to a project. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better or faster or good. So I simply don't see these side projects as taking anything away from any FromSoft major releases. I'd rather they take their time with things like that. There will be another major project at some point, and these side projects will keep me well fed until that comes out. There's also that I specifically like that they're making the multiplayer a big focus in both Night Rain and Duskbloods. I've said this multiple times, but I think it's worth repeating. I really like co-op. I like playing co-op, I like co-op games. But I don't play co-op in Souls games or Elden Ring, and that's because I think it sucks. I think Elden Ring is a single-player game, it's designed to be a single-player game, and it just so happens that it has co-op tacked on. Night Rain, however, is built from the ground up to be co-op, and in a similar vein, the Duskbloods is built from the ground up to be PvP. The PvP is central to the game's design, it's not just incidental. And I love Souls PvP, I love the invasion system. So a game where that's not just a side thing, but rather the main focus, that's a dream game for me. That's a Switch 2 system seller for me. Now, if anything, Duskblood might make me less excited for Night Rain, because in reality, Duskblood's more the game I wanted to play. Especially if Duskblood actually does have teams. For example, if it has 2v2, v2, v2. Because then it also has co-op, and that would mean that Duskblood seems more polished, it doesn't reuse the same assets. It has its own individual story, it's not tied to an existing IP like Elden Ring, and it's not beholden to that. It's directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, it looks better. It honestly just makes Night Rain less interesting in comparison. Anyway, that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.